members of Dimapur Press Club for giving me this platform today. My public speaking engagements mostly are actually to do with tax, GST, taxpayers, the people from finance background, entrepreneurs, or on the other hand, maybe students looking for career guidance and that kind of a crowd. So when I got the call saying that, can you please come and address this kind of a crowd which is very knowledgeable, very well read, and which can easily pick me up and tear me to pieces and throw me to the dogs, I took the challenge and I said, chalo, let's try it. But as I thought more about it, it soon became apparent that neither am I an expert in the theme for this year, AI, in the era of media in the era of AI, or in general, I'm not knowledgeable enough to address a crowd like this regarding National Press Day or the roles that the press should play. So, though I'll talk on this subject, being a taxman, I'll also, in the second part, talk about certain things which I believe such a gathering today should also be aware of. So, the way we consume news has drastically changed over the years. For me personally, I think social media has really changed the way I consume my news, to the extent that when I read the papers the next day, many of the things I've already seen on an hourly basis the previous day, right? And I've been a user of Twitter, or X as you call it, for many years. So, and if I compare across social media platforms, I think there's nothing like Twitter. Like one example I'll tell you, anytime there's an earthquake, okay, in India, you just check Twitter, earthquake. Somebody or the other would have tweeted about it, earthquake, Delhi, or somebody would have posted a picture if there's been some sort of casualty, right? So I think Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, they don't compare when it comes to Twitter. So for me, that has been an area where I think it has really changed the way I consume. So to some extent, things that have changed with AI coming in, I have also seen for myself. I mean, for all of us, I think algorithms basically determine the way we interact with news also, for that matter. What Google search shows for us, depending on our past history of how we've engaged with Google, right? So when it comes to, I think, AI, it presents a double-edged sword. Obviously, it comes with advantages. For today, I could have easily asked Google Bard or ChatGPT to give me a speech on this, and perhaps it would have given me a speech much better than what I would have done for myself, right? So, in some sense, I think even for media, some of the regular kind of work, data analysis, this kind of thing can be done through AI. But at the same time, I think the dangers that come along with it are big, and these are things which we need to be aware of, and it's not something we can shy away from. In the sense, the previous era where choices were limited, let's say the way we listen to music, we would listen to that cassette till the reel, accidentally got spun into our machine, or perhaps the way we watch movies even, watching the Hindi feature film on Doordarshan to be interrupted by Chitrahar on Sundays, all that is gone. You have OTT platforms, you have Netflix, you have this, that. It's all about choice. So even AI brings for us choices. So it's better that we get used to it. I'm sure even in the media, the younger lot, you come with more knowledge on these things also. And it's the older lot that needs to adjust and learn many of these things. But it's unavoidable because look at Twitter, for example. Look at the fact that every politician now needs to have a Twitter account. It has become another way. Instead of holding a press conference, he can say something in 128 words, 256 letters, whatever, to at least make a point. So newspapers also, I think almost all the papers have an Instagram account. It has become one more way to spread, right? So we are no longer dependent on the route of a delivery boy who sends the papers to get to the crowd. Because of the internet, because of affordability of smartphones, I think the way in which news spreads has changed. And accordingly, I think the way the news spreads in wrong ways, viral news. News spreading due to misinformation, wrong news spreading also has become an issue. Because compared to a reporter, somebody with a phone just taking a picture, and that can do so much damage, right? It spreads like wildfire. We've seen in many situations where users with no responsibility, social media users, they do that and that becomes news, right? Whereas for the media, you're always challenged with doing some verification at least before making a statement. So the fastest finger first, these kind of challenges are there for the media. Now, even our traditional challenges which the media would have faced before, be it dealing with the issue of paid news, biased news, be it issues like presenting non-issues as important news, whereas sidelining the actual things, or perhaps the chase for sensationalism, TRP ratings, etc. So these are things which media has to deal with, but in the era of AI, I think these are newer challenges to try and fight. I've been away from Nagaland most of my school, college and work as well. So it's only in the last 4 odd years where I think I've been here physically, and I've also read local papers such that every day I take 3 of our local papers and I go through them. I have gotten a little more familiar with our local reporters as well. And I can say the credit is due to our Nagaland media fraternity also for largely being impartial and not aligning themselves with only one particular political ideology or with one particular political party. That I can say from my own experience. But having said these few things on AI and media, I don't want to waste this opportunity by giving you a speech, like I said, which ChatGPT would have generated for me, right? It would be ironic, given the theme for this year. But as a taxman, I cannot allow this opportunity to go by without talking a little bit about the state of our economy. So just tag along with me even as I present a few things to you. I think you will agree with me that when it comes to our local media, compared to political news, compared to social news, compared to entertainment news, economic news, things to do with analysis of business, economy, taxation, finances, this is an area which doesn't get as much coverage as the others. You will agree with me, right? And I can honestly say, as an IRS officer also, this is something which I did not choose to do. But it was through the exam process that IRS was given to me and I became an accidental taxman, right? So I'll tell you the story. I worked in Calcutta for around 7-8 years before coming here. We met a person from Sikkim who was the chief of the entire Northeast. He's looking after West Bengal, Sikkim and entire Northeast. So he told us that in 1977 or 78, he was among the first Sikkimese to write that exam. Sikkim was not a part of India till then, and after Sikkim became a part, they were allowed to write UPSC, etc. So him and the then chief secretary, who was a lady in Sikkim, they were the first 2 from Sikkim to pass this exam and get. So he says he had no idea about IRS, no idea about taxation when he wrote the exam. Obviously, he wrote it hoping to become an IAS or IPS. And then, but one generation later, 25, 30 years later, he's there looking after the entire Northeast taxes. So it is possible to, within a generation, gain some expertise on these areas as well and be in a position to educate the public on these matters, because this, as I will present further, are important as much as healthcare is important, as much as policing is important, as much as the other sectors are important. Where we are collecting our taxes, our revenue from, so that it can feed all these areas becomes very important. I recently read an article, I think it came out in Morung Express, where maybe on Monday it was, where it talked about how the government is spending money in the various sectors. How much money is going to education, how much money is going to policing. So I thought that was a very educative kind of news. But these kind of reports are rarely seen, I think, in our local papers. For a state that depends hugely on central funding, I think we need more public discourse on the state in which our economy is running. I'll just present a few numbers. Please don't shut yourself, because many times when it comes to numbers, we just do this, okay? But this is with a point. I'll keep coming back to this number. Out of the money that the government is spending every year, only 12% is coming from money which is earned in Nagaland itself. So in budgetary terms, our own revenue, state's own revenue is 12%, which means 88% we are always dependent on Delhi, right? We are always dependent on central funding to do our everyday work. So then, our economic freedom, our ability to do the things that we want to do is greatly dependent on if we can increase this a little bit more. Our flexibility to do things is restricted. Why? Because out of our budget also, if you see, 2/3 of the budget goes to salaries of government servants and pension. So 66% of what we are spending is a fixed thing already. So with the remaining, we get to do what we want to do. So when we increase the size of the cake exponentially across the board, other things also will increase, right? And when it comes to central funding, one thing is that many times it's a 90-10. In the sense, center says we put in 90%, you put in 10%. But when our own bowl is so less, many times we miss out on a lot of central funding because we cannot even put that 10%. So you can imagine what I mean to say when exponential growth will be there, because even as we increase our own bowl, the ability to access more also rises, right? Little bit more technicality just now. I'll just talk about even this bowl is divided into two parts, our state revenue. I'm not going to use technical terms, but basically the 12% that we are gathering comes from two sources. One is coming through taxation, the other one through non-tax revenue, you call it, okay? So when you talk about tax revenue, it's mostly coming from GST. There's another tax, state excise, which we could have earned had NLTP not been there, right? For other states, this is a big amount that is earned. For us, mostly it is coming through GST. On the other hand, the non-tax revenue, there are many ways in which other states earn it. Lotteries, collection through power department, water supply, these kind of things. So for Nagaland, despite the weaknesses that are there in the power department as far as collection of revenue, so far, that is one area where we're getting, for the non-tax revenue, the most part, right? So this 12% mostly, by and large, I would say is coming from GST. Now that you have an idea where all this is coming from, let us look at what are the ways in which we also can help to increase this kind of revenue. Why I'm sharing it with the media is because I think we have a role in shaping public opinion and helping to make informed decisions, even in this area. The Honorable Chief Minister in his budget speech this year earlier had mentioned some of the ways in which our state government is thinking of to increase this part, increase this 12%. So he has mentioned one, the state will examine possibility of loosening NLTP to the fact that sale of liquor to foreign nationals. I'm just talking about what the government has stated. Two, introduction of sale of lotteries. Okay. Previously, what Nagaland Lotteries has been doing is, it is outsourced to distributors who sell Nagaland Lotteries in other states. But for the first time we are starting it, I think you would have seen, there are now many lotteries. So this is another way in which the government is trying to increase our own revenue. Thirdly, it has mentioned it will start oil exploration. Very contentious issue after negotiations with Assam and the central government, right? So here, from my personal experience, I think the way in which Nagaland or Northeast in general is viewed from Delhi has also changed in recent years. How? Look at the number of ministers that are visiting our state these days. Almost every month there is some union minister visiting, right? And it's beyond Kohima and Dimapur. They're going to the other districts. So along with them, some bureaucrats also come. Their idea of Nagaland is no longer that distant, mysterious, far off, inaccessible. They can see ground reality, what is actually happening, which also means they can see that the funds being pumped in, what is happening to them, right? So the funds coming from Delhi now more and more are tied with certain accountability and responsibility on our part as well. So when we start discussing issues that affect our development, issues in which this kind of revenue can also be increased, many times it is seen that the issues are actually something which we ourselves, we Nagas ourselves, need to get around, rather than for the central government or for an outsider or for Delhi to solve for us, many times.
Nagaland TV, Sop Manulaga Awas. Watch us live on Geo TV and on your television sets as well. For Dimapur viewers, we are on channel number 994 in Global Chapter, and Kohima and Mokokchung viewers, switch to channel number 138 on Hornbill Digital. For all news and updates, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter.